Hi, it's Olivia, and today I have a book review for Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. You might have heard of the guy. This is my first book that I read by him, so I'm very excited to share my thoughts. I'll start out with non-spoilery general thoughts and then get into more detailed and spoiler thoughts later on, and I'll let you know when. But this is I feel so late to the game with this. I feel like there's so many people who already have read this and know what it's about, but if you don't, basically the bad guy has won and it's been about 1,000 years since. The world is a depressing place, and we have this criminal thief named Kelsier who has the powers of a Mistborn, and he, along with our heroine Vin and the crew of people, he's bringing in hope, and he thinks that he can change the state of the world and defeat the kind of overall bad guy. I don't know if that was a short synopsis, but anyway, I thought that this was an incredibly entertaining and immersive read, and I honestly cannot wait to continue the series. The cast, the plot, the world, it was all great. And the story has a lot of elements that I think we've seen in fantasy before, like this all-powerful bad guy, the Lord Ruler, and you know, their characters go to balls, and then there's the difference in class and whatnot. All of those elements were just really well written, and the story played out so vividly in my head. I did start out a little rocky. I actually, way back, I think in 2018 is when I started this book. I got around 150 pages in and I stopped, whether I got distracted or whatever, but there's a piece of me that wasn't feeling compelled to continue, and looking back, I feel like it's because I was still getting all that exposition and it was kind of a slower start. And so when I picked it up, I didn't know if I wanted to reread that piece, but I decided to listen to that chunk that I already read 2 years ago on audio. I'm glad I did that because it refreshed all the good details that I've forgotten over the past years. Getting into the magic in the world, I thought it was super neat how Mistborn or Allomancers can control metals, and that's how the magic works, but I especially liked how it followed very strict rules. So one metal does this, the other one does that. And also, like, he made a point throughout the story of showing how it's just because you're able to control one metal, or if you're a Mistborn you control all of them, it didn't make you invincible. And it wasn't always to your advantage to use it in every situation, if that makes sense. There's instances where you're at a disadvantage for using a metal a certain way, or where your opponent can use it against you. And so what I liked about this is it made the characters, they weren't invincible, and it made for really good fights. And so I just really liked that. Speaking of the characters, what a cast! I loved every single character, honestly. The crew was great, especially our main character, Vin. Anytime they were all together, it was a joy. I loved their dialogue, they're funny, and I liked the choice throughout the story of whose POV it was in, especially as it got towards the second half, and the romance. I'll talk about this more in the spoiler section. I enjoyed it, but there's an element to it that felt a little unrealistic, which kind of took away from it. The last thing I want to mention before talking about spoilers is like the timeline of the story. So, you know, our crew is planning this big thing, and it's not something that's going to happen in a week or even a month. Like it's gonna take time. So it was interesting to see when he chose to have kind of like time jumps, when it would jump forward a couple months, because if we followed them every single day for a year, oh my goodness, this book would be just enormous. And speaking of that, like for example, Vin is in a place where you can expect that she's going to have a sort of training period. You know, she is inexperienced in what she does, and she has Kelsier, who is far more experienced, and obviously she's going to get some training from him. And I loved how, let me know if you agree, but sometimes in books and movies, they'll have a character who has to undergo training, and it takes forever. Like, I feel like they're spending all this time showing them training, and I could just care less sometimes. It drags, but it didn't here because of the choice he made with like time jumps and page breaks and stuff. I don't know if I made much sense. Despite sometimes some pacing stuff, it was so exciting to see the plot move forward, especially to get to the last third of the book after all the bumps and bruises and the climax. It was super exciting, and I can't wait to continue. So I think this was a good place to jump into the spoilers. So if you haven't read this, thank you for watching, and if you're still here, hi. Let's go back to the romance thing, shall we? So I love the first interactions between Vin and Ellen. I thought I really enjoyed their chemistry and their interactions, but at some point it seemed to just suddenly shift to being more serious, or I can't remember if Vin said that she loved him, if that was an internal thought that she had. And I just thought that came out of nowhere, because while they were cute and obviously I wanted the romance to happen, I had to do a double take, because I was like, they've only interacted like 2 or 3 times that I could remember. Maybe I'm wrong, but in my head, they didn't really know each other, or they didn't really interact that much. So I was like, okay, that came out of nowhere. Speaking of that, okay, before I talk about Kel's death, leading up to it, during that whole battle sequence, when Ellen came in and was like, Valette, are you in the middle of all the slaughter that was going on? I thought that was hilarious. I loved that bit, and I thought that was hilarious. But what I did not find funny was the next part, when Kel died. I didn't believe it. I thought that there was no... It wasn't that I didn't believe that he died. It was I couldn't believe that he died like that. It seemed underwhelming for his character. I understood what he already planned for and the effect that had on the rest of the story, but I still felt like that's not how he should have went out. I don't know, that's how I feel about that. I'm just like picking out random scenes that I liked and I want to talk about, and hopefully you've read them and want to talk about them too. But when the crew is hanging around and they start talking like Spook, I thought that was so funny. And I love when Vin lashed out at Kel. I thought that was a great moment for her character. What was that? She got like a paragraph worth of just shouting at him and saying, you know, you guys do not understand what it's been like for me growing up, for Ska. No matter what you may pose as, you still might as well be noblemen sometimes in the way you act and the things that you have. I read that, I was like, ooh. I made a note of Yeadon, but there's not much to say except what a fool. I think I'm gonna end this here. I know I didn't really talk about the Lord Ruler or the ending or anything. It was a pretty epic, you know, ending, and I'm stressed out going forward because I know there's unresolved issues there. You know, we still don't know what the deepness is and all this other stuff, and he had said something like, you know, you have no idea what you've done. I'm like, oh gosh, what now? So I'm excited to go forward. Please let me know your thoughts on anything and whether or not you liked this book or didn't like this book, and I will see you in another video. Bye.